She was born in the purple chamber of the great palace, the glittering heart of Constantinople, where silk rustled louder than whispers and ambition smelled of incense and blood. This wasn't just any birth, it was a declaration. One day, this girl, Anna Karenin, would write the most dazzling history of her age, an epic that still captivates us. Yet, despite her undeniable brilliance and royal lineage, she would never wear the crown that was, by every right, hers. How does an heir so golden, so clearly destined for greatness, become a ghost in her own lifetime? Was she the victim of a palace coup so smooth we can still feel its chilling fingerprints centuries later? Or did her own formidable intellect and fierce ambition ultimately lead to her downfall? Settle in, because we're re-diving deep into the smoke-filled corridors of Byzantium to chase the elusive footprints of the empire's lost princess. This isn't just history. It's a Byzantine thriller. Anna arrived in 1083, swaddled in imperial purple. To be born in the purple, a porphyrogenitor, wasn't just a fancy title. It meant you slid into the world while your father sat firmly on the Roman throne. This was a living guarantee of legitimacy. Her father, Emperor Alexios I Komnenos, had clawed the empire back from the brink of collapse. He desperately needed heirs who radiated stability and leadership, and Anna, well, she radiated everything. Her education was extraordinary. She was tutored by the finest minds in Byzantium, immersing herself in philosophy, geometry, and warfare. Imagine a child who could quote Homer before most kids could count to 10, who debated theology with bishops. Court poets compared her mind to a lighthouse constant, bright, and impossible to ignore. By 12, she was analyzing complex military dispatches for her father's generals. In a world where emperors feared incompetent sons, Anna looked like the answer to every succession prayer. The only snag: she was not a son. Then, 3 years later, a new player entered the game. Baby John, also born in the purple. Byzantium had no strict rule barring women from the throne. Empress Irene of Athens had ruled as emperor centuries before. But tradition, that stubborn, invisible force, undeniably favored males. Suddenly, the succession board flipped. Anna's brilliant star, which had shone so brightly, began to dim. Whispers persisted among the courtiers, though the elder child, Anna, possessed the sharper mind, the more commanding presence. Their mother, Empress Irene, openly preferred Anna and lobbied Alexios relentlessly to name her daughter as heir. The emperor, perhaps remembering his own ruthless climb to power, wavered. During these years, Anna was married to Nikephoros Bryennios, a respected military commander and historian. This wasn't just a love match. It was a strategic alliance. While young John was learning to wield a sword, Anna was learning to navigate the treacherous currents of court politics. Because, as she undoubtedly understood, knowledge without power is just trivia. And trivia does not keep you alive, let alone enthroned, beside the Bosporus. In 1118, the long reign of Alexios I drew to a close. The air in the great palace hung heavy with impending political upheaval. According to Anna's later writings, her father, in his final moments, hinted that she should guard my achievements, a phrase Anna took as an instruction to fight for the throne. Within hours, the court fractured. Empress Irene and Anna pressed a claim of Nikephoros Bryennios, Anna's husband. This was a clear strategy for Anna to wield real power from behind the scenes. But John's supporters, led by the fiercely loyal John Aksuch, were a step ahead. They controlled the palace guard and the city gates. What happened next reads like a thriller. Anna, desperate, tried to bribe the elite Varangian guard, those fearsome, axe-wielding Norsemen, but their loyalty to a direct male heir ran deeper than gold. Before the funeral smoke had even cleared, her brother was crowned John II, sealing Anna's fate. Most usurpers would have faced a swift end, but John chose a different path. He exiled her to the Kekaratomene convent, a convent of the graced. It was a genteel prison, but a prison nonetheless. The message was clear: she was too dangerous to kill, too royal to set free. Now, convents in Byzantium weren't exactly quiet retreats. These were often bustling centers of learning and whispered politics. Anna, stripped of her court jewels, donned a different mantle, the mantle of words. Over the next 2 decades, from her monastic exile, she composed the Alexiad, a sprawling, detailed history of her father's reign and a crucial, first-hand account of the First Crusade. It remains the only major history of that era written by a woman. She spins her story like silk, subtle, strong, and at times a little too transparent when her personal biases show. Modern historians still quarrel over her reliability, but we cannot deny its immense value. Without her meticulous account, we would lack half the essential details on Crusader diplomacy and the inner workings of the Byzantine court. She never overtly admits her rebellion, but the book hums with a pervasive sense of what if between every line. Was it a disguised manifesto, a dutiful daughter's tribute, or an act of intellectual revenge? Probably all three. After completing the Alexiad, Anna Komnene simply fades. It's a vanishing act that puzzles historians. Some believe she lived into her 70s, a respected intellectual tutoring nuns. Others argue she died mid-century, exhausted by chronic illness. What we do know is stark. No grand tomb, no elaborate grave marker, no definitive record survives to tell us when or how she passed. The empire, meanwhile, marched on under John II's successful rule. Chronicles from that era mention Anna only in footnotes, if at all. She becomes like a haunting melody. How could the most educated woman of her epoch become little more than a whisper? The answer lies in the ruthless politics of memory. Winning emperors controlled the official narratives. Praising a rebel, even a brilliant one, risked legitimizing future dissenters. It was safer to let her sink into the parchment shadows. Let's put on our detective hats. Clue 1. The Alexiad stops abruptly in 1118, the year of the coup attempt. A rather pointed coincidence, wouldn't you say? Second, later Byzantine historians liberally recycle Anna's factual information, but rarely mention her name. It's as if the source material appeared from thin air. Third, John II minted coins bearing his image prominently beside their father, subtly erasing any memory of female rulers. Fourth, within 2 generations, court orators spoke reverently of Alexius's illustrious son, nodding vaguely at unnamed, insignificant daughters. Historians call this a *damnatio memoria light*, not a brutal erasure, but an erasure polite enough to avoid scandal and thorough enough to fade Anna from common remembrance. Her real punishment wasn't exile to a nunnery, it was exile from history. Anna's story fits a broader, tragic Byzantine pattern. Empress Irene of Athens blinded her own son to keep the throne. Zoe Porphyrogenita navigated multiple marriages and accusations of murder to wield power. Theodora rose from humble beginnings to become a lawmaker and coroner. These were women who dared to climb too visibly, and they were either vilified, silenced, or had their legacies fiercely debated. Byzantium could venerate a virgin in an icon with profound devotion, yet simultaneously fear an intelligent woman with actual power. Anna, clever enough to write her way into the historical record, outwitted total oblivion. Still, the empire melted her legacy, drip by slow drip, because patriarchy was, in many ways, its default religion. So, what's your verdict? Was Anna Karenina the greatest empress who never ruled? Or was she a cautionary tale of unchecked ambition? Drop your thoughts below. Would you have backed her claim? And if you found this deep dive into Byzantine intrigue fascinating, smash that subscribe button for more stories history tried to shred. We set out chasing a lost princess and found something much larger. Memory itself is a battlefield. Anna's footsteps still echo in the marble of Hagia, so fear not audibly. But in every guide who mentions the Alexiad, in every historian who questions the silence, she reminds us that erasure is rarely complete. Words, once loosed, become refugees refusing deportation. Next time you picture Byzantium, imagine also a sharp-eyed woman, scribbling furiously by lamplight in a convent cell, determined to speak her truth. The empire thought it had buried an heir. Instead, it inadvertently birthed a voice that outlived crusades and even the purple chamber itself. And that, perhaps, is the sweetest revenge of the lost princess. We are still saying her name. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next chapter of history.